My name is Amy Wilk. I'm sitting with Kathryn Foushee. It is November 15th, 2017, and we are at the Warren County Public Library, and this is an interview for the Veterans History Project. Welcome.
Thank you.
Can we start out with where and when you were born?
I was born July 25th, 1971 in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Okay. And who are your parents and what were their occupations?
My mother is Susan, maiden name Nickel. My father was Harold Jones. My mother was mostly a stay-at-home parent for most of my childhood. My father worked in various things, factory type work mostly.
So mostly blue collar?
Yes, very much.
Okay. Were either one of them in the military?
No, my father was 4F. He had flat feet.
Okay.
My mother had 4 brothers, and all 4 of them served,
Okay.
but
And what,
she did not.
what branches were they in? Do you know?
They were all in the Army.
They were all in the Army. Okay. And do you remember them being in the Army? Were you?
No,
you know,
I
before your time?
don't. Yeah, they're very much before my time.
Yeah.
My mother's youngest brother. I know. I mean, I know all of my uncles on that side, but I don't remember them being in service now.
Yeah. Did they ever talk about their service?
Not to
years?
me.
Not to you.
No.
And what were you doing before you went into the service?
I was in high school.
So you went straight out of high school?
Actually, before I graduated, the December of my senior year of high school, I was in the Army National Guard in Louisiana, and the recruiters came to my high school and said, give us 6 years of your life and we'll pay for your college. And yeah, blue collar family,
Yeah.
you know, there was no money
Yeah.
for college, so it seemed like
That
a good
was
idea.
Good deal, huh?
Yeah, so I signed up. My mom actually had to sign the papers because I was only 17. I turned 18 in basic training, and yeah,
Where was your basic training at?
Fort Dix, New Jersey.
Fort Dix, New Jersey. And had you been out of the state before then? Have you been very far before then?
Not very far, no. The most I had ever been was like to stay with my grandmother, you know, that sort of thing.
And you were living in Louisiana at that time,
At that
right?
time, yes.
Yeah.
We moved when I was 12.
So you had lived in Oklahoma,
Oklahoma and Louisiana.
And Louisiana. Had you ever been north at all?
No,
Was that
no.
Was that a big shock?
It was a huge shock.
Yeah.
It was actually kind of a funny story. It was the first time I'd ever been away from home, like I said, for more than just going to my grandmother's.
Yeah.
And first time I'd ever been on an airplane. And I got to the MEP station, military entrance, I forget,
Yeah.
processing station, I think is what it's called. And met a guy there who was going for his secondary training. His name was Jimmy. I cannot remember his last name. But so he was about my age, and I was scared to death. And he was so sweet and so nice. And he sat beside me on the airplane and let me hold his hand. And I think I probably crushed that poor boy's hand. But yeah, so it was an experience.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that would be kind of daunting for the first time being on a plane.
Yeah,
and
very much.
Going into basic training and going to a new
away
world.
from home, and yeah, it was very different.
What time of year was it?
Summer. I graduated high school in May and went to basic training in June, like 3 weeks later.
Okay.
So yeah.
What made you? Well, you were told that you chose that because of the college.
Yeah, at that
promising.
time, I don't know what it is now, but at that time, Louisiana National Guard was 4 years tuition exempt. So that meant all that I had to cover was, you know, living expenses, books, that sort of thing.
That's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, it really was.
So you were in the Army National Guard. Did you choose specific branch for a reason?
It just, like I said, because they said, you know, it was tuition exempt.
Okay.
We didn't, I don't really remember a lot of recruiters from other branches coming. Where I went to school is a very small, very rural area. So, you know, there wasn't a lot of industrial or anything around in the area.
Okay. And let's see. Do you remember your instructors?
Yes, while I was in basic training, yes. There was Drill Sergeant Kirschman. She was a female drill instructor. Drill Sergeant Burton. He had actually served in the President's Honor Guard, which was really cool.
Yeah.
And Drill Sergeant Coleman were my 3 DIs while I was in basic training.
What was basic training like?
Oh gosh, it was It was terrible. It was wonderful. It was definitely a learning, growing experience.
Mhm.
My mother said, when I came back, my mother said, you went away a little girl and you came back a woman.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it was, I've talked to many new recruits coming in, you know, while I was still in service. And the way I explained it is drill instructors have basically 8 weeks to take you from a group of individuals doing exactly what you want, whenever you want, you know, and turn you into a cohesive unit of people who will obey orders without hesitation, without questioning, because literally your life or the life of the person next to you may depend on it. And to do that, they have to be tough. They have to be very hard on you. They have to break you down to build you back up. We had team building exercises. We had, you know, discipline. We had lots of discipline. Pushing up Fort Dix, that was, you know, a common expression. During formations, you were expected to watch out for the person next to you. When I went, basic training was strictly gender segregated. You know, it was all females. Now I understand it's mixed. So, you know, the girl standing next to you, you were supposed to check and make sure her uniform was good and she didn't have any buttons unbuttoned, no strings undone, you know, whatever. And she was supposed to do the same for you. And if one person had something wrong, your whole platoon was dropped.
Yeah. Oh,
because you're supposed to watch out for one
gosh.
another.
Right.
The first day there, we gathered in the classroom, you know, like 60 of us or whatever, and the drill instructor said, look to your right and look to your left, and these are the people that are going to help you get through the next 8 weeks. And he was very right. We had a confidence course, is what they called it, which was, you know, obstacle course, but it was terrifying. I'm scared of heights, always have been my whole life. And this is one of my favorite stories from basic training. We had, it was a series of platforms that were probably about 8 feet square. And the first one was like 5 feet off the ground, and then the next one was about 5 or 6 feet high, and then there were 3 of them total. So the top one was, you know, 15, 20 feet off the ground. You were in teams of 4, and you had to get all 4 of your people to the top and then back down.
Oh, wow.
So to get up, you know, the first one, you give the first person a leg up, and then you get up, you know, you get up to the top. That's not a big deal. Well, coming down, what you had to do was lay flat. Like, this is a platform. You had to lay and then hold right here. There were handholds on the edge, and then flip your body out over the edge and down to the next platform down. And so when the first person went, of course, there's one person laying here, and the other 3 team members are holding them and guiding them down, and then you get back down to the bottom. So I got up there. I was on the top. Getting up was no problem. I got to the top, and I had to go back down, and I froze. I couldn't do it.
It's always the hardest part, isn't it?
Yeah. And so Drill Sergeant Burton came up. He climbed up, and he was standing, you know, like this, face to face with me, and he said, "Now, Jones, you know I'm not going to let anything happen to you." And at that point, that was almost at the end of our training. You know, I had been with this man for 6, 7 weeks at that point, day in, day out. And I knew, I had faith, I had confidence in him that he wasn't going to let anything happen to me. And I was able to do it. And that was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. It was the hardest thing up to that point that I had ever done. But even now, you know.
I imagine it was kind of a feeling of free falling almost.
Yeah, and it was scary. Even though these were girls that I had been with, I had slept next to and fought next to and trained with, you know, it was still, it was hard. But I trusted them, and I knew that they were going to take care of me and they weren't going to let me down. And that's what basic training is. It's that building of the camaraderie and the companionship and the teamwork that's necessary for the military.
Did you learn any lessons there that you carried forward?
Absolutely. Not just in basic training, but in the military as well. When I got out of the military, when I got out of the National Guard, I was a specialist E4. The next promotion after that is to E5 sergeant, which is an NCO, non-commissioned officer. NCOs are actually in charge of troops. So before I was promoted, I had to go through PLDC, Primary Leadership Development Camp. And that's where they teach you to lead people.
Mhm.
So, yeah, a lot of that I've taken with me, and a lot of just the general, in basic training, one of the things that I have a vivid memory, we all took turns leading the platoon, calling cadence, that sort of thing. And there was one girl, I can't remember her name, but she was in charge for the day. And the drill sergeant said, "No, you eat shall last. Your people go first. You always put your people first." And that has very much been a part of everything that I do. Now, my job now is I work at a university library. I'm in charge of student workers. I always try to take care of them. I've been in management in retail. I'll scrub the toilets, I'll take out the trash. I'm not going to ask my people to do anything that I'm not willing to do myself. And I think that gets you a certain amount of respect. I'm never going to be one of those management that just sits in the little ivory tower and says, "You go do this." I'm going to be down there. I'm going to be working with you.
Yeah.
And if I'm working, you better be.
Yeah.
That's my motto.
Yeah.
And if there's no work
And
to
it
do, that's
works.
fine.
It does work, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
It does work.
I have been, not to toot my own horn, but I have been blessed with good employees, but I think you also have to be a good leader to do that, to be in charge of people.
Definitely.
So yes, your original question,
Yeah.
yes, I
It's
have
really
definitely
rough forward.
taken some
Yeah.
of the things that I learned in the military into my regular life.
So, and you talked a little bit about what you did after you got out of boot camp, but can you tell us some more about that?
Well-
What happened after boot camp?
After basic training, then I went to college. I started my freshman year of university at McNeese University in Lake Charles, Louisiana. I went there for a year, fall and spring semester, and then the next summer I went to AIT, which is Advanced Individual Training. Because I was in the reserves, they split my training over the summers. For regular Army, you just go straight through. So basically, BCT, Basic Combat Training, is where they teach you to be a soldier. You learn to shoot, you learn first aid, you learn how to march, how to take orders, like all of that sort of stuff. AIT is where you learn your job. My job was, my MOS, military occupational skill, was 31 Victor. I was in communications, unit level maintenance and repair of communications equipment.
You remember all those
I
acronyms, don't you?
do. They drill them into your head. I could recite the phonetic alphabet for you if you wanted. So yeah, that was the next summer, and there my AIT was 13 and a half weeks at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. It was an infantry base. So I'm sorry, not infantry, field artillery base. So there were very few females, which was interesting. In my unit, my company there were at any given time 3 classes that rotated out. Every 3 weeks or so a new class came in, somebody graduated and a new one came in. So in the 13 and a half weeks that I was there, I was one of about 5 females that entire time. There was one other female in my class, and
What was that like?
It was different. It was at my unit, because I went to drills at my regular unit in between basic training and
Throughout
AIT.
the years, is it like a monthly?
Yes, one
going
week in a
monthly?
month, 2 weeks in the summer for the National Guard. So at my unit, because I was so young, I was 17, when I joined, and then turned 18. But most of them were older men. There were a few females, but our supply sergeant and our S1 sergeant had been in Vietnam.
Wow.
So yeah.
Kind of crusty old veterans, although
Very
not crusty
much.
yet at that point, because
Getting
we're
there.
talking the late 80s?
Yeah, 88, 89.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, and they were very avuncular, very, oh, let me teach you and show you, not really demeaning in any way, just more, okay, this is a newbie, let me watch out for kind of thing, but didn't really trust me yet, didn't take me seriously, and I'm not sure how much of that is because I was young, because I was new, and how much of it was because I was female. I think there was probably equal parts there. When I got to AIT, the first day we were there, we, again, gathered in the classroom. It must be a training thing, I don't know. So there were, again, probably 50, 60 people, me and one other girl, and then a bunch of guys.
Yeah.
And we were all roughly the same age. And the sergeant, the instructor, had me and the other girl stand up, and he told the guys, he said, for the next 13 weeks, these are your sisters. You will watch out for them, you will protect them. If you see them getting unwanted attention from a guy, you will go and kick his ass, and if it takes more than one of you to do it, that's okay. And if I find out later that you didn't take care of it, I'm going to kick your ass. And that's basically what he told them.
Yeah.
And that was both reassuring that there was, somebody watching out for us, but at the same time, it was like, I can watch out for myself. I can take care of myself. The guys in my unit during AIT, they were wonderful. I never had problems with unwanted attention. I never had, no sexual harassment, anything like that from them. They were really good. I think because we were close to the same age, they had probably been raised with mothers who had gone through, the equal rights era, that sort of thing. And so they were more, okay, you say you can do it, do it. And because we were all training, we were all at that same
kind of
level. Level playing field,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah. We went out on a weekend towards the end of our training. Bivouac is what it's called, field training exercise. And so we were gone for overnight and playing war games. Your unit attacks my unit, that sort of thing. And our unit had really messed with another unit. We got put out, our first sergeant went along with it, and he got in a truck and got a whole bunch of our class in the back of the truck and drove over to the other unit, and of course they let them in because it was a first sergeant. And one of our drill instructors took the rest of our class through the woods the other way, and we just basically ambushed them. And yeah, it was great. It was hilarious. We were
really
stealing
good
tent pegs, and took their first sergeant hostage, and yeah, it was great. We thought it was fabulous. So of course they retaliated,
Right.
and they were mad.
Oh.
And so we're out there in the woods. It's night. It's, I don't know, probably 8 or 9 o'clock at night by this point. It's dark anyway. And me and the other female, of course, have been put together in a fighting team.
Do you remember her name by chance?
Donna Imke. And Donna, if you see this, I'm sorry, but you were useless. She was one of those. She weighed about 90 pounds soaking wet.
Oh, no.
And I don't know how she passed basic training. She was not the stereotypical female of, wanting to do her hair and makeup, but she was not strong.
Okay.
And that really bothered me because it felt like that was the stereotype.
Is it kind of like a toughness question, maybe?
Yes,
Not so much
very
strength,
much.
but toughness.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, one of those. She was always running behind. She was always. You never quite got there, And she may have been a perfectly lovely girl, But at that point, I was 19,
Yeah. We can be so hard on other women.
Yes, absolutely. And I was there to prove something.
Yeah.
And she wasn't filling up to what I thought she should be.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I probably did judge her very harshly for that. But anyway, so we've been assigned to a fighting team together, the two of us. So we're out there in the woods, and we've got a hasty fighting position, which means basically we dug a little shallow ditch in the dirt and got some bushes and stuff, and we're, trying to disguise ourselves. And these guys from the other class came over, and they're, and so we're laying prone, which is flat on your stomach, and we've got our weapons, of course, and our helmets and our gear and everything. And one of the guys comes over and he stands over me, like 1 foot on either side of me. And he's got a couple of his buddies with him, and he's talking about, oh, look, we found some POWs. Oh, we're going to take them prisoner. And just jawing off it. Yeah, all right, whatever. I'm going along with it. Sure thing. And Imke is over here just deer in the headlights.
Yeah.
And so my thought is, okay, I've got to take care of her too. And so the guy is, running off at the mouth, et cetera, and his buddies are laughing and egging him on and everything. And it's like, okay, fine, good, you got us, go on now. Because, fine, we've been taken, that's fine. Joke's over, we're done.
Right.
Well, he keeps on.
Oh, man.
And I told him, I was like, okay, we're done. Enough. And he wouldn't stop. He's still standing over me. Like, he is literally straddling me. And I'm flat on the ground. And it was just a feeling of helplessness, of powerlessness, of we're out here, nobody knows where we are, because people are running and screaming all over the place, and it's just chaos. I don't know where my drill instructors are. I don't know where the rest of my guys are. And here's these 3 men standing here. And then they started talking about, well, what can we do with them? And it it was never spelled out that they were going to do something bad, but it was just the tone of voice, and it felt very much like that. So I rolled over on my back and just put my foot straight up into his crotch and just pushed. And I'm wearing combat boots.
You didn't really kick him, but
I did not kick him, but I did hurt him.
Yeah.
I'm wearing combat boots, and I wear a size 10 shoe. So, and I wasn't gentle because I was just
It's probably the first time you were grateful you had big feet, huh?
And of course he goes stumbling backwards, and his friends are like trying to make sure he's okay. And Imke and I just got up and ran. Yeah. And we went and found one of our instructors. I heard later from one of the guys in my unit, that he had to seek medical attention.
Oh.
I hope I didn't seriously, permanently injure him. Yeah. But he was warned. Yeah. I warned him twice, and he kept up. Yeah. So I did what I needed to do.
You were defending yourself.
I was.
Yeah.
I was.
And that's what the military had taught you to do.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I never heard anything else about it. I never heard any official reprimands, nothing like that.
Did you tell your commanding
officer
guy about it?
No, I did not. I never said anything. And like I said, one of the guys in my unit came to me and said, "Hey, I heard." Yeah. And I never really confirmed or denied. Yeah, right. So now it's on videotape, but statute of limitations is hopefully over by this point.
I think so.
But yeah, that was probably the worst thing that happened while I was in the military.
And now, you weren't, let's see, there wasn't a war on during that time, was there?
Desert Shield, Desert Storm.
Okay, so that was happening. That started, okay.
Yeah, actually, while I was in AIT, we, at the end of AIT, Desert Shield, Desert Storm started while I was in AIT, summer of 1990. And one of the buildings on our base at Fort Sill, Oklahoma was being used as an out-processing station. So we actually saw the guys who were being sent over there. At the end of the training, you get your orders of where you're supposed to report next, and for most of it was back to your home unit. Our class leader, 19 years old, Griffin was his last name, I cannot remember his first name, got orders that he got to go home for 2 weeks and see his family, and then he was going to Iraq, where the rest of his unit was. Wow. Yeah.
Did you get called up at all?
I did not. I was close. I was in a headquarters detachment, and all 4 of our line units went. So I knew people who
Yeah.
were over there.
Did you
When
lose
they-
anybody?
No, fortunately, we were very fortunate. But one of our units, the 1090th, was one of the first ones sent over there, and one of the last ones called home. When they came back, you know, of course some of them didn't really want to talk about it, some of them did. One of the most heartbreaking stories that I remember is somebody said, one of the people who had gone said, we just sat around the tanks around our bonfire and listened to the mortar shells going off and prayed that we'd be there in the morning. And to me, that's just so
imagine.
evocative of
Yeah.
what it's really like. There were women, of course, who got pregnant deliberately so that they would not have to go.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I considered that cowardly.
Yeah.
You signed up for this. You knew this was a possibility. Go and do your duty. That was how I felt about it. But, you know,
So your
again,
duty
I
makes
was
their
19.
choices. Yeah.
Yeah, I probably judged them a little more harshly than maybe I should have because I was not in that situation. We did during that time we did a mock deployment, which is basically you pack up all your military gear, you report to your base, and you update your wills, you update your shot records, you update, you know, all of your paperwork
Basically,
and
you act
stuff.
like you're going.
And then they put us all on the bus and we rode around camp and went back to our unit, and that was it. But I found out afterwards that our unit was on the list of the next ones to go. If it had gone on another couple of weeks or so,
You
we
guys
would
were
have been
fine.
shipped out.
Yeah. So what were you doing in the military whenever you were
I
on
was,
duty?
like I said, unit level maintenance and repair communications equipment, which basically meant my AIT was I learned how to fix, diagnose, and repair radios and field telephones and you know, any communications equipment that we had at that time. That was basically what I did. So when we went to the field, I ran phone lines. I, you know, monitored the radios. I was in the TOC, which stands for Tactical Observation Center. It is, we were right next to the command center. We had, if we were in the field, we had to have 24-hour operations. So in case somebody, you know, had a message or whatever,
Right.
we could take it. We could be there.
Communication is really key.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Very important part of any military, I'm sure.
Yes, one of the things we learned in basic training was if you're attacking the enemy, you want to cut the communications because you know that's how you get reinforcements. That's how you get supplies. We were with I was with it was a headquarters detachment. It was a supply battalion. So our supply sergeant said we supply the bullets and beans.
The 2 B's, huh?
Yeah.
So were you always in the National Guard? Did you go to any other
No.
branches at all?
No, I did not.
And how long were you in?
6 years active, 2 years inactive. So 1988 to 1994, I was active, which means I went to drills once a month, had my 2 weeks in the summer, all of that. And then from 94 to 96, I was inactive, which meant that I was technically still part of the military.
You could
but
be called up.
I could, yeah, if something had happened during that time, if we'd gone to war, if, you know, for whatever reason, if they needed somebody with my specialty, I could have been reactivated at that point.
Okay. And what were you doing during that time? I know you were going to college.
I went to college and actually dropped out of college, which was really stupid on my part, but
What was your major at that point? Did you
Psychology.
Have one? Psychology. Okay.
yeah, I was going to be a psychologist, going to go on and get my doctorate, and that was the plan. It didn't work out.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, and then because I dropped out of college, I had my high school diploma and basically no job training. I
Yeah.
waited tables.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's not the end of the world.
No, it's not. And it was good experience, good life
Yeah.
experience.
How did your training in the military help with the waiting tables? Did that have any sort of effect on that part of your life?
I think being in the military, you learn discipline, you learn to take orders, you learn, so I think in that respect, yes, it did. Responsibility, yes. I think in that respect, it's affected every job that I've had because I know the chain of command. I know, I answer to this person who answers to this person. And I follow that and I respect that. And I'm not going to, go to the head person if it's something that can be dealt with here.
Right.
As far as did it affect or help with being a waitress, I think probably I learned not to take any guff from anybody. Because I was a soldier. I was in the military. I had done that. And so one job that I had, one specific waitressing job that I had, the other waitress there she was in college, and she was this very petite, curvy, with the long hair and full makeup, and she would flirt, and she would wear the little deep cut shirts and the little short skirts because she got better tips that way. And I was like, no, I'm here to do a job. I'm going to bring you your food. I'll be polite. That's it.
Yeah.
Because again, to me, that was, that's not what I was about.
Right.
I was never that, not on the job.
Right.
That I was very straightforward and businesslike.
Yeah. You weren't willing to give that
No, I wasn't.
idea of that might
No.
be something that's kind of like giving a promise without following through on it.
Right. And
Yeah.
I never,
Yeah. That didn't,
I was never okay with that.
yeah. Was there like a disconnect maybe between being the warrior and then being the regular,
Woman?
woman?
Yes, very much. And not everybody can deal with that. But yeah, I think there was, because when I put on that uniform, I was a soldier. I was there to do a job. I was, again, very straightforward, very businesslike. I wanted to be taken seriously. I wanted to be respected for what I could do. And off the clock, so to speak, I was a young woman. I was 17 when I joined. I was young. I was
Having fun?
having fun, right. So yeah, I think there very much was, because in the military, there is uniformity, which means, everything looks the same, everything works the same.
Right.
And even though I didn't look exactly the same as the guy next to me
Right,
when we had
right.
our uniforms on,
Right.
the uniform really does disguise a lot of
Oh, yeah.
the female figure.
Yeah.
It's designed to make you blend in. And that was okay. But I was never encouraged to display my femininity when I was in uniform. And that was fine with me. Outside of that, I like a twirly dress and a little makeup, and my hair was longer then, and I would do it up and put on my sparkly earrings and go out on the town. So yeah, there really was. There was also, you mentioned a promise without following through.
Right.
When I was that age, my girlfriends and I would go out, we'd go to a bar, we'd hang out, we'd have a few drinks, dance. I never let a man buy me a drink.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
Never let a strange man buy me a drink. If
That's
it was one of my
really
friends,
better.
that was fine. But because I never wanted that expectation.
Right.
I never wanted that, oh, I did something for you, now you owe me something. No. No. So I think that even that probably did, carry through a little bit.
Do you think that was something before you went in to the military, though? Or
I
was it
don't
something
know.
maybe that came with that training and understanding that you can rely on yourself? And
I don't know. I've always been fairly independent. I'm an only child, so I didn't have the built-in playmates that you do when you have siblings. But I was so young when I joined that I don't know.
got lots of playmates then.
Yeah, yeah, and that's interesting because I took a class on it was a folklore class, and the instructor. What we read.
This is later on when you went back to college.
Yes, when I went back to college. Thank you. Yes, I recently went back. I graduated in 2013. I went back part-time in 2010 and got my degree in 2013. Yay me. So I was taking a class, and we had read a short story, or an excerpt from a short story called The Things They Carry. I can't remember the author. It's really good. But it's talking about men in war, and they carried pictures, and they carried photographs, and they carried memories, and they carried fear, and they carried anxiety, and it's talking about battle fatigue and PTSD. They didn't call it that then, but that's what it is. Just that constant state of being on high alert and not being able to relax. And so we were talking about this, and the instructor said, is the military a culture? And for, if you don't know, a culture is defined as there are insiders and outsiders. People self-identify as being members. There are rules, written and unwritten, written or unwritten, that are handed down from one generation to the next, or from older members to new members. Absolutely, the military is a culture.
Very much so.
And that's what I said. And so the instructor said, of course, well, would you care to explain that? And yes, there are abbreviations that are used. There are slang terms that are used. There are insiders and outsiders. There is a shared knowledge and base of understanding that you just don't have if you're not a part of that group, or if you haven't been a part of that group. And even today, I can go, and if I see someone else who's been in the military, we instantly have a connection. Whether that person is 20 or 80, or a man or a woman, or whatever race, creed, color, religion, whether they were in the Army or the Marines or the Navy or whatever. There's that shared knowledge that other people just don't have and don't get. And I was never in war. I was never sent overseas. I never, experienced that. But I do have something of an understanding of it just from having that training and knowing people who did and who went through that. And
being part of their circle.
Right. And, someone who's never been through that, who doesn't know, they might have some empathy, have some sympathy, but it's not going to be the same.
We can
for
know
them.
it, but not understand it really, truly.
Right.
We can sympathize, but not empathize, really.
Yeah.
We don't really have that.
Yeah, you don't have the background
Right.
for it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that what I went through being in the military is the same as a combat vet, because
Right.
clearly it's a worlds of difference.
Right.
But I would say that I have a better understanding than a civilian.
Than say me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would agree with that. Oh, man. And now that was intense. That was wonderful.
Sorry.
Thank you.
You're
that
welcome.
was wonderful. You were in there 6 years. Did you do the same job the entire time you were
Yes.
with them?
Yes.
And how did that, were you promoted at all? And how
Yes.
did that go
When I
about?
started out, generally everybody starts out as an E1. E stands for enlisted. So the ranks for enlisted are E1 through E9. When I got out of the military, I was an E4 specialist.
Okay.
So yeah, basically after basic training, you get promoted to E2, which is private. E1 is private, E2 is still a private, but you get your mosquito wings, your little, it looks like this. E1, you have no rank whatsoever.
Yeah.
You're a complete newbie. E2, you get your mosquito wings. E3 is private first class, which is the mosquito wings with a rocker underneath it. E4 is specialist, or the lateral promotion is corporal, which is the same rank,
Right.
but it's more of a supervisory position. So when I got out, I was E4. If I had stayed in, I would have been promoted to E5 sergeant.
Okay. And were you able to move around while you were doing that, or did you have to stay in the same area while you were?
I could have. I did not move, but I could have. If I had moved, say, to another state, then I would have had to find a unit that had an opening for me and transfer to another
Were
to
there
another
any
unit.
limitations on your life outside the military while you were in the service?
Not for me personally, but being in the National Guard is different from the Army Reserves or the regular Army, because those two are federal. National Guard is state.
Okay.
So basically, when I was in college at McNeese, the first time I was in college, there were guys who lived in my dorm who were in the National Guard in that area. My unit was 100 miles away.
Right.
But there were guys who were in the National Guard in that area who had to be on call, because it was state run, state regulated, in an emergency, if there was, a hurricane, which Louisiana is famous for, that sort of thing, the National Guard would be called out to deal with it. So if you get a red alert, then you have to stay within 10 miles of your home base.
Right. So you could get there.
Yeah, so you could get there. And you had to be, it was like, I don't remember, it's like yellow alert, you had to be within 100 miles, and you had to be within, couldn't be further than 10 minutes from a phone.
Wow.
I may be wrong about this, but it was, it was a very definite.
Well, and this is before cell phones.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
You didn't have cell phones at that point.
Right.
But it's probably still a better distance, I would guess.
Yeah, I'm sure it
you had to be there
is.
physically.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. What did your family think? You told us a little bit about what your mother said when you came back, an adult, but a woman.
Yeah.
What about your grandmother? Because I know you were very close with your grandmother.
I was. She was proud. My grandmother, both of her husbands served in World War II. And then, like I said, my mother's 4 brothers all served in the military. I actually have 2 cousins who also were in, one who was in the National Guard in Texas, and one who was in the Navy Reserves. So for my grandmother, it was, okay, yeah, this is what you're doing, good for you. And yeah, I think she was proud of it. She was like, yeah.
What about your
good.
uncles?
We didn't really have a lot of contact with them at that point, so I never really knew,
Were any of your family members concerned because of your sex, because you're a female going into the
My mother was
military?
very concerned.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if it was because of my sex or just because I was her baby.
Yeah.
But when she went to sign the papers, I know the recruiter told her, well, now don't worry, because she's in communications and she'll be protected, which was true because, like I said before, communications is with the big brass. So you're in the middle of the compound, but you're also the biggest target.
Yeah.
When I came back from basic training, I, of course, was telling my mother, what I had done. And when I told her I threw live hand grenades, she nearly had kittens. You did what? Yeah, I did.
I got to blow stuff up.
Yeah. So she really freaked out about that.
Yeah.
And I think I think it was probably at that point that she realized that I was an independent adult.
Yeah.
Because I moved out. Like, I graduated high school in May, I went to basic training in June, I started college that fall, and that's it. I haven't lived with my mother since then.
Yeah.
So, and that was hard.
I bet that was quite the experience too.
It was. Yeah. It was.
Are you a member of any veterans organizations?
I am
or
not.
anything like
I am not. Technically, I am not considered a veteran by the military because I was not active duty
that?
during any war,
Any war
or anything. I could apply for benefits because I was in the military. I don't. I never have. I never will. To me, those resources are for people who were injured, who, aren't capable of taking care of themselves because of what they suffered, of, whether it be mental, physical, whatever. That's not for me.
You think it's a needed basis?
Absolutely. And those resources are scarce enough that I'm not going to take something that could go to something who deserves it a lot more.
Yeah, makes sense. Are you still in contact with any of your friends from then?
I'm not. Which is a darn shame, really,
Yeah.
because I did make some really good friends. And, yeah.
Was there quite a lot of camaraderie and camaraderie?
Camaraderie.
Camaraderie within the units that you served with and...
Yes. In basic training, we were thrown together,
Yeah.
essentially. But, yeah, I did form some really good friendships there. There was, we had, in basic training, there were 8 people in a room, 4 sets of bunk beds. And the person who had the bed either above or below you was your ranger buddy.
Ah.
So when we went to the field, when we went to the range, whatever, you stuck together. And we had, when we were in the field, of course this was during the summer, but we camped out and we had little 2-person tents. So part of your gear was you had one half of the tent.
Oh gosh.
And your ranger buddy had the other half, and they snap together, and they make a little, basically a little lean-to, very small, just big enough. Yeah. But your ranger buddy watches out for you, and you watch out for her. That's just the way it was. So we were doing a road march out to the range. It was like 6 miles or something, and it was at night, but it was in the middle of summer.
Yeah.
And I fell out. I couldn't. I started getting, it's heat exhaustion is what it was. Because we were loaded down, full gear, full, dress and everything.
I imagine it was pretty humid.
It was very humid. Yeah. It was in New Jersey, but it was still, it was hot. Yeah. And so my ranger buddy is this little girl. She's like 5 foot nothing. Tabitha Johnson was her name, from Georgia. I remember that. And she went and got the drill sergeant. She said, Jones needs to get on the truck.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I'm fine. I'm good. She said, no, you need to get on the truck. So I got on the truck and went rode the rest of the way to the range. And we got out there and she took charge and she took care of everything. And she put up our tent and got all our gear stowed and, made sure I was okay and made sure I drank water. And, yeah, I mean, that's just, that's what you get.
That's part of the learning too.
Yeah, that's part of it.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
In my unit, after training, we had, I didn't go anywhere, but they closed a lot of bases during the 90s, and we had some people shuffled around, etc. So some personnel changes. There was a woman there who was a lesbian, and that was during the time of Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Yeah.
And so it was a big deal. And she was in a relationship, a same-sex relationship, obviously.
Yeah.
But she was very careful
Yeah.
about who she let know about that. And
Yeah.
I was one of the few people who actually got to meet her partner.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and she and I became pretty good friends.
Uh-huh.
She was a little older than me, but yeah, I would love to know what happened to her too.
Well, there's Facebook now.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I should look up some of these people.
What have you done since separating from the military?
I got married. Actually, I got married while I was in the military.
Mm-hmm.
I was 21,
Mm-hmm.
and my first husband had wanted to go into the Air Force. He wanted to be a pilot,
Mm-hmm.
but he wore glasses, and
Mm.
pilots had to have 20/20 vision.
Ah.
So because he couldn't be a pilot, he didn't join the military at all.
Mm.
He knew that I was in the National Guard.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was upfront about that. He was okay with it, said he was okay with it. And then Desert Shield, Desert Storm, you know, started.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually 20 when we met, turned 21. And they did, like I said before, you know, the mock deployment while he and I were married. And he said to me, "I'll make sure you're pregnant before I let you go."
Well,
And that didn't sit too well with me.
I can imagine that it would.
And I said, you know, first of all, that's not your decision.
Yeah.
You don't let me do anything.
Yeah.
And if I'm called, I'm going.
Yeah.
You don't have to like it. You can be mad.
Mhm.
You can be worried. But you're not going to forbid me to go.
Mm-hmm.
And we divorced shortly after that. I'm not going to say that that was, you know,
Yeah.
the thing that did it, but
Yeah.
that definitely played a part in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because...
Did it affect other relationships?
Probably. It probably did because I mean, I was young.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I did have other relationships before that. Nothing long term.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of men were not comfortable with me being a strong, independent woman
Mm-hmm.
who spoke her mind, and you know, I didn't do the. I'm just
Yeah.
a poor little
Yeah.
girl and I can't do that. No, that's not me.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't going to play those games.
Yeah.
So after my divorce, I met someone else, my wonderful husband now, Ken. We will celebrate 23 years of marriage next week.
That is awesome.
Yeah, and he's okay with it.
Mhm.
I was still in the military. I was about to get out of the military when I met him.
Mm-hmm.
And he understood and accepted
was Ken
that.
military?
No,
No.
he was not.
I didn't think he was.
No, nobody on either side of his family, as far as I know,
Uh-huh.
is. But he was okay with it, and he liked that I was a strong, independent woman
Yes.
who could take care of herself.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't want some clingy little, you know, mouse.
Yeah.
So that's probably one of the reasons why
You
our
go on
marriage
so
is, why we're still married now.
I think you all have one of the strongest relationships I've ever seen, I should say.
Thank you.
Knowing you as a personal friend. And you seem to complement each other quite well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's really, really wonderful. So when you waitressed after that, you went back to college.
I did.
These days, you deal with a lot of student workers.
Mhm.
You know, you have a lot of youngsters around you.
I do.
Do you see any of them going into the military? Does your training with the military ever affect how you help them?
That's funny that you asked that, because it was just a couple of weeks ago I actually had somebody ask me, "Well, you were in the military. My sister's thinking about going. What would you say? What would you tell her?" But yeah, I think when I first, after waitressing, we moved up here. Ken and I moved up here, and the first job that I had here in Kentucky was retail. I worked for Kroger. I started out as a bagger and then worked my way up to assistant department manager. And when I first got that job, I was very hard-nosed, very, this is the way it's going to be. You do what I say. Don't question me. Very authoritarian, which I think was directly related to, you know, a consequence of my military training. Because that's what I knew. That's what I was taught. And you can't do that in the civilian world. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, not everybody goes well with that.
So I've had to learn to kind of soften that a bit. But as far as my job now, yes, I in a way I think it does still affect, because if I tell somebody to do something, I expect it to get done. I don't want excuses. I don't want back talk. I want do the job. If you can't do the job, tell me why, and if it's a good reason, okay. But you know, don't say okay and then just wander off somewhere. That just annoys me. Punctuality is a big deal with me. I tell all of my people when I'm interviewing people, student workers, you know, and then when they during their training period when they first start, punctuality is a big thing for me. This is when I need you here. You know, if you're going to be late, occasionally things happen, you know, I understand that. Let me know. And if it gets to be an issue, we're going to sit down and discuss it. So I think that probably is, you know, leftover military discipline.
Not a bad thing, though.
No, I
Especially
don't
not
think so.
in that job, because you have students who have to be in certain places at certain
Right.
times to cover desks and things of that
Right.
nature. And,
Yeah, and so I need you here. I need you to be here. I need you to do your job. You know, and I expect my people to be self-sufficient. You know, not to have to come run to me with every little problem. I'm there if something does come up, if an emergency arises or something that they're not familiar with, that's fine. But you need to be able to do this job without me looking over your shoulder. And that's what I expect from them.
well, and you're dealing with college students, so you would
Yes.
think that they had, you know, they got to the age where they can be somewhat independent.
Theoretically, yes. Some more than others.
Let's see, I think we've covered the life lessons part. How do you feel about the military now?
That's a good one. I think some of the changes have been good. For instance, women have much more freedom in the military than they used to. I actually did a research paper when I went back to school, did a research paper on military women during the Vietnam era, during the Vietnam War. And as part of that, I found out that it was only in 1978 that women were officially part of the military. Before that, they were just auxiliary. That was during my lifetime.
Yeah.
You know, that was 11 years before I joined.
Which is not very long.
It's
in the
not
grand
very
scheme of
long,
things,
no. So, you know, when I joined, when I was in the military, there were only certain military jobs that females were allowed to do. And now, I mean, it's just been within the last 10 years that women can have combat MOSs.
Right.
And some people say, oh, that's terrible, we're sending women to the front lines. Well, women have always been on the front lines. They just weren't getting recognized for it. You know, during World War II, during Vietnam, during Korea, during Desert Storm, women were there. Not in an official capacity, but they were there, because when you're in a war, the front shifts.
Yeah.
And just because you're supposed to be back here in the reserves where it's safe doesn't mean that this is going to stay the safe
There's
area.
different levels of the front too.
Yes, absolutely. But the other thing is, being in a combat position, a combat job, gets you more pay. It gets you more promotion points, which means that, you know, you can be promoted to those higher ranks more easily or quicker.
Which also means you probably have more say later on down the line
Right.
about how people are treated in the military. to begin
Absolutely.
with. Yeah.
And for many years, women were not, because they weren't allowed in those positions, they didn't get those benefits. You know, and now they're starting to. And I think that's a good thing. And to all those people who say, oh, well, women can't handle it, and women, you know, they have their periods and they get moody and they're not mentally capable, I say bull.
Yeah.
Because men get moody, and, you know, men get battle fatigue, men get PTSD, they do all of those things. And when just recently, you know, the first women went through Navy SEAL training. Good. I don't think that the standards should be any different. I think for something like that, for something that is that demanding a position, if a female soldier can meet those requirements and do that job and wants to do it, more power to her. I don't think they should lower the standards.
Right.
But I don't see anything wrong with having women in those positions. And the other, you know, thing that people worry about is, oh, well, there'll be, men won't want to listen to a woman, or there'll be sexual harassment. Well, there's always been sexual harassment. There's always going to be. You know, you have to learn to deal with it. Women have to learn to, you know, knock him out or whatever it takes when that happens. Men have
Give
to
him a
learn.
push with the foot?
Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
whatever. Men have to learn that just because this woman has different parts than you, that does not mean that she's, you know, a centerfold. She's a soldier just like you are. When I was in PLDC, Primary Leadership Development Camp, there was, it was a small class. It was like 15 of us or something, and I was the only female. That was difficult. It was only 2 weeks, but I was with these guys, you know, not 24/7 because we had separate barracks,
Right.
of course, which was another problem because they were all in the barracks together. I was in a separate barracks, the female barracks, with women from other units and, you know, who I had never met, didn't know.
Right. But you were separated from your unit, so I guess that would probably
Right.
give you some feelings of isolation from
Yes.
the unit you were supposed to be bonding with.
Right. And when I was, because it was a leadership training program, they also did okay, you're in charge of the class today, and you're in charge. Well, one of the things of being in charge is to inspect the barracks. I couldn't go in their barracks.
Right.
You know, I couldn't do that sort of thing. They couldn't come in mine. When there was a truck came and picked us up, a deuce and a half, the big trucks that you see that have the canvas over the top,
The iconic.
2.5
Yeah.
ton truck, yes.
The
called
iconic
the-
truck that you see soldiers in the back of all the time.
Right,
in movies
right.
and stuff.
Called the deuce and a half in the military, because it's a 2.5 ton truck. So the way you get in that is the tailgate swings down, and when the tailgate is in the upright position, it's got 2 handles on either side right here. When it swings down, those become footrests or
Okay.
steps. So you put one foot into the step, and then if you're the first person on, somebody from behind gives you a push up, you know, on the back or the butt
Right.
or whatever,
Yeah.
to get you up in the truck, and then you turn around and you give a hand up to the next person.
Right.
That's the way it's done. None of the guys,
Efficiency.
right? None of the guys would let me help them in. They had no problem helping me,
Of course not.
and I don't mean that they were, you know,
Yeah.
using it as an excuse to touch me inappropriately, because they weren't. They were businesslike about it. But once I got in and I turned around to help the next guy, no, I got it. And I put up with it for a few days, and we would go, so the truck would come and pick us up, and then we would go to a classroom, and we would have our class meetings and be instructed and stuff, and they would give us breaks because we were there 8 or 9 hours, you know, so we would be let out to go hang out, get a soda, smoke, whatever. The guys didn't want to hang out with me. They didn't want to talk. They didn't want to chat, you know. And so one day, our class, the instructor had gone through everything, and he was just letting us shoot the breeze. And I said, look, I've got something to say. I'm a soldier just like you are. I put my boots on, you know, one at a time. I wear the same uniform. I wear the same combat boots that you do. Don't treat me any differently, because I'm a female, you know? And I was probably a little more eloquent and a whole lot madder.
Yeah.
But that was my point.
Yeah.
And so that afternoon, when we left to go get in the truck to get back in the barracks, every damn one of them lined up and asked me to help them on the truck.
So they're making their point too?
I guess they were.
Yeah.
But after that, it was like, okay.
Well, good.
You know, and I was just one of the team, which is what I wanted in the first place. That was all I was asking for.
So if you had stood up for yourself and said that to them, it wouldn't have changed, would it?
No.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it would have.
Yeah.
I think they still would have treated me as, oh, well, she's the female. Oh, we have to protect her. We have to watch out for her. No,
Yeah.
you don't. I'm not asking for special treatment.
So part of being in the military for you was also putting forth that extra effort of being, not necessarily one of the guys, but being a soldier and making sure that they understood that you were.
Yeah.
Because, and that's not something that they have to do with each other.
Right.
Men, per
Because
se.
they're
But for
accepted as
women,
that.
you have to. Do you think that women are probably still doing that?
Probably.
Yeah.
I hope it's to a lesser extent. I
Mhm.
hope that things have changed enough that, you know, that's not as big a deal.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think they probably are. I have not talked to any younger generation or present, you know, women who are currently in the military to know that. I have had several male student workers who were in the military in some capacity, and I've talked to them about it a little, and things really have changed. A big thing that I talked to one of my male student employees, when you're marching or when you're running, you call cadence, which is you know, the things,
yeah.
right, to keep everybody in step. And when I was in basic training, there were several cadences that were would not be appropriate now.
Yeah.
That were very sexually suggestive, let's just say. And so I talked to, you know, this guy about it. I said, hey, do they still sing this cadence? Is that so? And he's like, no. Oh, no. And in fact, what he said was part of their classroom training that you have at the beginning of basic is they had like a 3-hour lecture on sexual harassment.
Yeah.
We never had anything like that. You know, that was not a term that was used or probably even known when I was going through it, when I was in the military. But he said, oh no, they would never do something like, what are you talking about?
So there's a lot of things in place now probably to deal with
Yes.
those issues. Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
definitely.
great. I'm glad that things have changed.
You shared with me the instance you had with some harassment. Did you hear from the other females that you did serve with, from them? Were they having instances of that, do you think?
I never really, it wasn't really talked about.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't discussed. I don't remember ever hearing about anything personally. I think, like so much sexual harassment, it was just you know, if you don't say anything about it, then it'll just go away, and you know, nobody's going to believe you anyway. And I mean, I never told anybody.
Yeah.
You know, when I was in, what happened to me.
Yeah.
And I don't really think I would have had the words for it because, like I said, sexual harassment wasn't a term that was used then.
Right.
Looking back, clearly that's what it was.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was, oh, he's just joking. Oh, you know, it's just, you took it too seriously. It wasn't that big a deal.
So if you had pursued it in that respect, it could have been looked upon that way.
Right.
Although
And
I think the way you handled it was probably the best way anyway.
And I think probably if I had pursued it, then I would have been discriminated against and, you know, not taken seriously. And that's the other thing too. Because I was female, I felt like I had to prove myself, and I had to show that I belonged there, that I had a place. You know, there were a few of the guys in my unit after training who never came out and said, oh, you shouldn't be here, you should be home in the kitchen. But just their general attitude of very dismissive, very, made me understand that they felt like women shouldn't be in the military. So if I had come forward and said, look, this guy did this, it's inappropriate, you need to discipline him, that would have just been another stone in that wall of why women shouldn't be here.
Right.
And I think, extrapolating here, clearly I can't speak for all women, but I think in a sense that I do, that most women do feel that way, at least at some point, and especially when they're young, and especially during that time before sexual harassment was talked about and understood and recognized the way that it is now.
Yeah. And of course, it's a hot topic right now.
Yeah.
In the news. So, what would your message? What kind of message would you like to leave for the future generations who might view or hear this interview?
I would like to say that being in the military was a wonderful time in my life. I'm glad I did it. I joined because they paid for my school, but during that time I found acceptance and camaraderie and companionship and a true sense of duty, of loyalty, of patriotism. I didn't go in feeling like this is something I'm going to do for my country, but by the end, by the time, when my first husband said, I'm not going to let you do this, it was, yeah, I am going to do this. This is what I signed up for. This is what I'm doing. And I still feel that way. I still feel like I served my country, and I'm glad that I did. Lee Greenwood's song, God Bless the USA, I tear up every time I hear it.
Yeah.
Because that's it. It's these are the men and women who fought and who died for our freedoms, for our way of life. And I'm privileged and honored to be a part of that, of something bigger than myself and something honorable.
Yeah.
So it's not for everyone. And I've told people that, it's hard. It's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, but it's very rewarding.
Thank you.